that there is a recording in progress. So now I can take this big record button off of my screen and see all of you. So welcome, and let us begin our gathering tonight with a time of prayer. Holy and gracious God, as we gather across this synod, we are so grateful for the wonders of technology that allow us to see and hear one another and begin to build the relationships that will take us through the coming weeks. We pray that as we gather, we give thanks, first of all, for those who have agreed to serve as commissioners and alternates to General Assembly. We give thanks for the time and the energy and the intelligence and the imagination and the love that they will bring to this work. We pray that you will sustain them, that you will keep them healthy, that you will bless them with insight and with a great and renewed appreciation for all you are doing in our world for the sake of those you love. Bless this time that we share, that it might be helpful, that it might be meaningful, and that we might enjoy it as well. For we offer this to you in your holy name. Amen. One of the things that we appreciate doing is taking the time to meet each other, if nothing else, to find out. Let me start over. Sometimes when I've been to General Assembly, it's like you think you're there as the sole person. You know, you might know the other person from your presbytery and your presbytery staff who may be at the General Assembly, but that may be it. And we want you to know that you are also a part of this group that you are seeing on your screen tonight, that we all come from the same region, we have similar concerns, we have similar situations, and that we have each other as well. And so that's one of the reasons why we started to hold a synod-based event and opportunities so that you could, I know it's still 6-7 weeks away, but that you'll have a chance to say, oh, that person's on my committee and they're from my synod. You know, it might be a way to make a connection. And then when you're there in person, be able to, you may be sitting by each other and be able to greet one another on behalf of the synod. So with that being said, I'm going to, I think it might be easiest if I call on people and just invite you to unmute and introduce yourself and what role you are, what presbytery, although most of you have that on your names, but also if you have a special role. We have some people in our synod who are serving as moderators or vice moderators of committees. We also have stated clerks from our synod who are serving as a resource person to certain committees. So let us know that when you introduce yourself. And anything else that you might want to say? We only have 20 minutes for introductions.
So if they can share what committee they're serving on,
yes.
I think okay.
Yes, also what committee you're so what committee you're serving on as well. So Mark Bedford, you're the first person on my screen.
Hi, I'm Mark Bedford. I'm the teaching elder commissioner from Prospect Hill, and I'll be serving on the ordination committee.
Thank you. Molly from Hastings.
Yeah, I'm Molly. I'm a student at Hastings College and I'm a YAB. Yeah.
Thank you. Joanne Murtha. Whoops, you need to unmute yourself, Joanne.
There we go.
There you go.
Hi, I'm an alternate lay commissioner for Missouri River Valley.
Okay. Thank you. Glad you could be with us. That will be helpful. Tim, you want to say hello?
Good evening. I'm Tim Cargill. I am the Associate Director for Ministry Leadership Development in the Office of the General Assembly and the recording clerk for the Assembly. And also one of the co-leaders of the training for OGA, for the General Assembly. So that's the capacity I'm with you this evening. It's good to be with you all.
Thanks, Tim. Sherry O'Bannon.
Hi, I'm Sherry O'Bannon, Prospect Hill Presbytery CRE Commissioner, and I will be on the General Assembly Entity Coordination Committee.
Thank you. Cindy from Milwaukee.
Hi, I'm Cindy from Milwaukee Presbytery. I am on the General Assembly Procedures Committee, which I think will be good because we're hosting it in 26. So it'll be sort of feels like a spirit-led decision.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, the GA will be in the bounds of the Synod in 2026. So
Yes.
great. Thomas from the Twin Cities area.
Hi, I'm Tom Reuter, and I'm from the Twin Cities area Presbytery, and I'm going to be on the Sexuality, Gender, and Race Committee.
Thank you. Stephen Johnson, South Dakota.
Yes, well, she said Stephen Johnson. I'm a commissioned pastor over in Willow Lake, South Dakota. And I am on the Polity Committee.
Okay. Well, we have all different committees so far. That's kind of interesting. Lori from Winnebago.
I actually am joining Sherry on the General Assembly Entity Coordination Committee. So there you've got two from our
Yay.
Synod on the same committee. And I am a teaching elder from the Winnebago Presbytery. No special role.
Yeah, thank you. Pam Prouty.
So my name is Pam Prouty. I am the stated clerk of the Presbytery Minnesota Valleys as well as the Synod. And I am serving as a parliamentarian for the Ordination Committee with Mark.
Ilona.
Greetings, everybody. I'm Alona Street Stewart, your Synod executive here in Synod of Lakes and Prairies, and I'll be attending the General Assembly both as a Synod executive and a past co-moderator of the 224th General Assembly.
Thanks. Jeff from MRV.
Yeah, Jeff Dickinson from Missouri River Valley, ruling elder on the commissioner on the International Engagement Committee.
Thanks, Jeff. Beth Walter Miller.
Yeah, I am the EP for Minnesota Valleys.
So you'll be bringing treats to your commissioners and those kinds of things. Luella.
I'm Luella Voigt, and I am a ruling elder from Laverne, Minnesota, and I am an alternate from our area. And I don't believe the other person is here tonight, and I don't even know what committee she's on. Do you know, Pam?
No.
Nope. Okay.
David Lick.
That's a lot of Minnesota Valleys people in a row.
Yes,
I'm
it
David
is.
Lick. I'm the teaching elder from Minnesota Valleys. I'm on the Domestic Engagement Committee. And I also have to give a big shout out to Cindy for pronouncing Milwaukee correctly, which doesn't have an I or an L in it. As a Milwaukeean, I know that.
Julia Prouty.
I'm Julia Prouty. I'm a YAD from Minnesota Valleys. And hi, Mom. My mom's Pam.
We did get 4 of you from Minnesota Valleys all in a row. That was,
What committee are you on, Julia?
yeah.
I'm on the Race, Sexuality, and Gender Justice Committee.
Okay. Thanks, Julia. MJ.
Yes, hello, my name is MJ Wojtek. I use they, them pronouns. I'm also a teaching elder from the Twin Cities area. And David, domestic engagement.
Okay. Thank you. Dan Voigt.
Hey all, I'm Dan Voigt. I'm a teaching elder in the Twin Cities Presbytery, but I spent 5 years in Missouri River Valley and 6 years in North Central Iowa. So it's very good to see so many friends here. I'm on International Engagement Committee with Jeff Dickinson. And like Julia Prouty, I am here with my mom. Hey, Mom.
Libby Hall.
Hi everyone, my name is Libby Hall. I am from Westminster Presbyterian Church in downtown Minneapolis. I'm on the ordination committee and I'm a youth delegate.
Wonderful. It's good to have so many YADs with us tonight. Thanks for being here. Christine, North Central Iowa.
Hi, I'm Christine. I am a teaching elder from North Central Iowa. It's good to see you, Dan. Nice to see you back in one of these meetings again. And I'll be a commissioner serving on Mid-Councils Committee.
Thank you. Terry Sherman.
Yes, I'm a ruling elder from Homestead Presbytery, live in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I am on the entity coordination with 2 other people that already said they were on, so.
Great. Jay Klein.
I am Jay Klein from the Missouri River Valley Presbytery, a teaching elder, and a past chair of the CPM of our presbytery, thankfully, the past chair. And I am on the Race, Sexuality, and Gender Justice Committee.
Great. We have a nice little group there. Beth from, how do you say it? Milwaukee?
Said it perfectly. I'm Beth Van Gorp. I'm alternate and from the Milwaukee Presbytery and a ruling elder.
Great. Glad you could be with us. Cindy Martinson.
Hello, I'm Cindy Martinson. I'm from Northern Waters in Duluth, Minnesota. And I am serving as a commit on the council for Mid-Council. So Christine, nice to meet you. Guess we'll be on that same committee together.
Good. Ted Anderson.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ted Anderson. I'm a pastor commissioner, and I am on the International Engagement Committee also with Jeff and with Dan. So good for us. And I was able to attend as a theological student advisory delegate many years ago. Guess what? Where we were? Salt Lake City. Good to see you all.
You too. Okay, the next person on my screen is called Owner.
Sorry, that's me. Yes, I guess I'm technically challenged and I haven't got my name on Zoom. But anyway, I'm Sarah Hagena from Faith Presbyterian in Lenox. I'm a teaching elder commissioner for South Dakota Presbytery, and I'm on the General Assembly Procedures Committee.
Oh. So Sarah, if you put your cursor over your picture, you'll see a little square with 3 dots on it, and that will, did we lose Sarah completely here?
No, I'm here.
Okay, that will give you that there at the bottom of that menu, you can rename yourself.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Okay, now my screen is moving around here. I have to see who I haven't called on. Nancy Ross Hollinger.
Hi, I'm Nancy Ross Hollinger from Missouri River Valley Presbytery, and I'm the interim stated clerk, and I'm here to listen and learn.
Welcome to your new position, Nancy.
Thank you.
Suzanne Gorhow.
I'm Suzanne Gorhow, from teaching elder from Missouri River Valley. I am an alternate, and I was actually an alternate from the Des Moines Presbytery a number of years ago and did not serve. So I'm hoping I don't serve again this time.
Okay. Sandra Hawley. Whoops. There you go. Oh, we're still not hearing you.
Sandy Hawley from ruling elder from the Presbytery of the Twin Cities area, and I am serving on the GA procedures. I think that makes 3 of us.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
By the way, Alona was short served herself there. She's also, I believe, our alternate from the Twin Cities area.
Yes,
Many hats.
That is correct. Thank you.
That is true. That is true. Doodle.
Hi, I'm Doodle Harris. I'm the teaching elder from Central Nebraska. I'm right up the street from Molly, who's also at Hastings College. I'm the chaplain at Hastings College, and I'm on the polity committee, which is kind of funny for a college chaplain.
Yeah, really. Megan Davis Brass.
Hi, I am actually was just elected alternate on Tuesday, and because unfortunately our teaching elder who was meant to go is now on hospice. So I was both elected and knew that I would be going, barring some miraculous recovery, which I would be more than happy to hear about. And I do not know which committee I'll be serving on. And I'm in Des Moines, if I didn't say that already.
Well, I'm glad you're able to step in, Megan.
Thank you.
Yeah. Adrian.
I am Adrian McMullen. I'm a commission ruling elder from First Presbyterian in Maxwell, Iowa. And I am a commissioner from North Central Iowa Presbytery on the Race, Sexuality, and Gender Justice Committee.
Wonderful. Thank you. Bob Boswell.
I'm Bob Oswald, Assistant Clerk of Winnebago Presbytery, and my role is as an advisor to our commissioners.
Thank you. Sue Metzger.
I'm the ruling elder commissioner from the Presbytery of Central Nebraska, living in Hastings, Nebraska also. And the last time I went to Presbytery or to General Assembly as a commissioner, all 3 of the commissioners were from my church. So, and I'm on the finance committee.
Oh, you're the first one we have on the finance committee. Roxanne. Oops, you need to unmute yourself, Roxanne.
I am a ruling elder from Des Moines Presbytery, serving on the Living Legacy Committee. And I will make the 4th on General Assembly procedures.
Okay. Wonderful. Annika, I know you're driving. Can you talk?
Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm saving you from seasickness since I'm mobile this evening. Wonderful to see everyone. Annika Lister-Stroop. I'm the stated clerk and administrative executive for the Tri-Presbyteries in Iowa, so Des Moines, North Central Iowa, and Prospect Hill. And so I will be there in a support function to several of you, and just happy to see many of the rest of you as well from my past in PTCA and Homestead.
Great. Ian, are you here?
I am. I too am on the road. I am Ian McMullen. I am the pastor to the Presbyteries of North Central Iowa, Prospect Hill, and Des Moines. I am currently in Dubuque. I'm going to meet with the University of Dubuque Theological Seminary staff tomorrow, which is where I began General Assembly attendance as a TSAD back in 2008. I've attended as a commissioner, and this will be my second time as a general presbyter. So my duty is to smuggle things onto the floor of presbyter or General Assembly to keep blood sugar up and morale high.
And do you want to claim the third family privilege of the night and say hi to your brother?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, hi.
Keep it in the family.
Thank you. Is there anybody that I missed? Well, it's great. It's really great to see all of you. Thank you for making the time to be with us. One person who we didn't have introduce himself was Jake. Jake, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jake Souter, and I'm a support person for you tonight, helping Tim behind the scenes for GA 226. I'm serving the Environmental and Climate Justice Committee as their recorder. So pleased to be here, and I'll be in the background.
Thanks, Jake.
Deb, could I interrupt?
Yes,
please?
Of course.
So my husband just called our Minnesota Valley's ruling elder person, and she's in the emergency room.
Oh.
So I think she's there with a daughter-in-law, if I heard my husband right across the room. But so we need to keep her she's Sonia Alexander, and then Marcy Campbell, the teaching elder from Des Moines, who was going to go to GA. We need to keep them in our prayers.
Thank you. Thank you. And we will do that. And I think it's also important that we keep each other in prayers as we move through these coming weeks, because you'll be doing a fair amount of preparation, and I want you to be able to see it to the completion, be able to be there and enjoy all that it has to offer. I would like at this time to invite Tim Cargill to take the lead, and I will pin him and make him visible for all of us. And he is going to lead us through a training that the Office of General Assembly is doing for synod groups like ours. And I know Tim's one of the wisest people I know, so it's wonderful to have him with us tonight and to be in his hands to lead us. So Tim.
Thank you very much, Deb, and thank you for those very kind words. What we're going to do tonight is to give you a chance to practice with the online tools that you'll be using both during your committee meetings, your committee business meetings, and in the plenaries of the General Assembly. You hopefully have already met once with your committees in a kind of informal way on Zoom to kind of get to know each other and to begin building community. You will have another meeting in a few weeks that will give you another chance to continue to get to know each other, to kind of begin to talk about the schedule that your committee will have, things of that nature. You will not be talking about the substance of the business at all during these pre-assembly meetings. That will not happen until we move into formal committee sessions on the morning of June 25th. But what we want to do tonight is to give you again a chance to not only see, but to hands-on practice with the tools that are going to make it possible for you to go about your work, both in the online time during committee meetings, and as I said, also a good bit of this in the plenary sessions in Salt Lake City. There are a couple of things that you need to know about how the committee meetings will work. Everybody probably has at least some familiarity with Zoom, and we will be using Zoom as we are tonight as the video conferencing platform for these online committee meetings, but it's going to be a little different. So, for example, a couple of things that we've already seen tonight. Some of you have your cameras on, and some of you have your cameras off, which for this evening is fine. But when you are in a formal business session of your committee, you will need to keep your camera on. The Zoom manager for your committee will be using that to be sure that the committee members are present and are engaged in the deliberations that are going on before the committee. If you need to step away for a moment for whatever reason, that would be the time that you would turn off your camera as a signal to the committee leadership that you have had to step away for a moment. So if you are someone who doesn't particularly like seeing yourself on screen while everything's going on, there is a way in your Zoom settings for you to turn off your own, so that your own camera doesn't display on your screen, so that other people can see you, but you don't have to watch yourself. Exactly the mouse clicks and things that you have to go through are a little different depending on the device that you're using. So we're not going to try to walk you through that tonight. If you Google Zoom, turn off my camera, or turn off, don't watch myself, you'll find the instructions on how to do it that are appropriate to your device. So that's one thing to understand. The other thing that you need to understand is that when you are in business sessions with your committee, if you need to seek recognition to speak, you're going to have to do it not inside Zoom. You're going to need to do it through My GA, and we're going to talk tonight about how to do that. So whereas when you're in the first meeting, you've already had the meeting you'll have coming up in a couple of weeks with your committee, they're probably going to tell you to find the reactions tool and raise my hand, which brings you to the top of the list and all these kind of things. You've probably done it a dozen times for different meetings of one kind or another. That's not the way it will work at the General Assembly. In committees, you'll need to seek recognition through My GA. And even though you won't be in the plenary sessions, you won't be using Zoom, you're going to use exactly the same seek recognitions process in Salt Lake City. So that too will be different and new. It'll be the first time that we've had a plenary where you have not, those of you who have been to assemblies in the past may remember our beloved badminton panels with the colored pieces of cardboard stitched to them. No more colored paddles. We'll see tonight how that works. So again, two things to keep in mind, particularly in committees, but your camera will have to be on. And if you want to seek recognition to speak, you'll have to do that through My GA, not through the Zoom controls. The third thing I'll mention about Zoom, and then we'll get into those that My GA tool, is that the only time you might need to use the Zoom during the plenary sessions in Salt Lake City is if you need interpretation. So if you need interpretation into Korean or Spanish, that will be delivered to you at your seat in the plenary hall through Zoom. So if you are going to need interpretation, you want to be sure that you bring headphones and that you will be logged into Zoom. You'll get the links for that and so forth. Which gives me a chance to mention one other thing about headphones, both if you need it for interpretation or if you're using headphones during your committee meetings. If you have a nice set of wireless earbuds or something like that, they can be great. The wires don't get in your way when you're trying to type and move around and all that. But do remember they have limited battery life. So have a backup in case the batteries run out in the middle of the meeting. So you can certainly use whatever your device will support, but if you are accustomed to using wireless headphones, then be sure you have a backup if you're going to need interpretation or you're using them in your committee meetings in case those batteries go out. So hopefully tonight you are on a device that you will be using for the General Assembly, and I want to encourage you at this point to see, we've got one hand up. Ted, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. You talked about uh, um, English to other languages. What about from other languages to English?
So in committee, you'll all be on Zoom. So you would get the interpretation through your device. So if somebody is speaking Korean or Spanish, you'll get the interpretation through Zoom. When we are in plenary in Salt Lake City, we will play the interpretation, the English interpretation, into the hall through the speakers. So you will not need to, if your primary language is English, you will not need to be on Zoom in the plenary hall for either interpretation or for any other purpose. Okay. All right. So hopefully again, you all are on a device that you're going to use. So I would encourage you at this point, because we want this to be hands-on practice, I would encourage you to go ahead and kind of reduce your Zoom window a little bit and start and log in to My GA so that you have that open in front of you. And so what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start sharing a screen where I will have logged in as a commissioner. Here we go. And so that if you're not able to, if you don't have a device that you can do this on tonight and practice, that's fine. You can at least see this. Deb mentioned at the beginning, we're recording this, so people who are watching this recording can kind of see what we're doing as well. But this is for all of your work with the General Assembly. You're going to start at My GA. And once you're logged in, you're going to see that there are several sections to the site. Hopefully you've already been here and looked through some of this. I just want to quickly run down what the different sections are. The business section is really for you to do your research or your advanced work. It is a place where you can go and you can click on the committees tab there, and you could put in your committee. So I heard several of you that are on domestic engagement. You could put that there, and you can see the items of business that have been assigned to your committee. Let's say that you needed to actually go back and look at maybe something that had happened at the last General Assembly. Maybe you're thinking about making a commissioner's resolution. And so you need to know, is the concern that I have something that was dealt with at the last assembly? Because the standing rules say commissioners' resolutions cannot be something that was dealt with at the previous assembly. So in the business section, you can also go to the previous assembly and then search and see actually all of the business that came before that assembly, go through, look at the committees and so forth, see if that was there. So again, so this is all of the business that came to the last General Assembly. So the business tab is really there as a reference tool for you to look beyond the scope of your committee, to look at the range of things that will be before us in the 226th General Assembly, and also then if you needed to go back. Meeting tools is what you'll use when you're actually meeting in your committee meetings and in the plenary. I'm not going to go into that right now because that's where we're going to spend most of our time. We'll come back to that in just a moment. Resources. The resources tab has a lot of different things that are there for you. There's a fact sheet, there's the proposed docket, there's the covenant on our conduct. If you needed a copy of the Book of Order, there's even a copy of the Book of Order that's available for you in the resources. If you needed the standing rules for the General Assembly, they're part of the manual of the General Assembly, which is also available to you here. Actually, just below the resource, the Book of Order. So again, a number of resources that you may hear people make reference to or that you may want to use yourself. That's what's there. Inbox communications. This is a place where you will begin to get a lot of information about either from your committee leadership or about the assembly in general. So you can see that this week, Kate Trigger-Duffert, our Director of Assembly Operations, has sent out an invitation for you on behalf of the Presbyterian Outlook to attend a webinar that will be a chance to learn about the two teams that are standing for election as co-moderator. But other announcements and messages will appear in that. So when you go to My GA, be sure to check in to see what communications you may have there. The last section here is the preparations area, and this is the one that I really hope that you've been in. This is the one where we have a lot of the training that will be necessary for you. When you go to that, one of the areas that you will go to is the training section, where we have the mandatory training for all assembly participants. GA Basics has an overview of the General Assembly. It talks about gearing up. What's the kind of technology that we would recommend that you have? And then the GA Conduct and Ethics. I want to highlight that one for a moment. That is available in English, Korean, and Spanish. It is something that you are required to work through to the end, and then basically give us a digital signature that you understand what the ethics are of being a commissioner or an advisory delegate, and that you will abide by those. So that's in the GA Basics area. The next area over is information. This is not stuff that we're going to track to make sure that you have done, but it is things that may be very helpful to you. The one thing that is there at the moment is General Assembly parliamentary procedure. You may be familiar with Robert's Rules of Order from being on a session or going to a presbytery meeting, or maybe a civic organization that you're a part of. But there's a lot more to Robert's Rules of Order than what usually comes up in a session meeting. And a lot of that happens in a large gathering of hundreds of people, like a General Assembly. So we don't make this mandatory, but there are some excellent tutorials here in this section that can help you. Again, the basics, some guides and charts that can be useful for you just to have available, so you'll know what the whole range of motions are that can be made. So various resources to help you brush up on assembly procedures that you may not have run into before, like a minority report. You probably haven't run into a minority report, certainly in a session meeting, probably not even in your presbytery, but it is a real possibility of something that come up in General Assembly. The third of the areas that we call, oh, one other thing, just to let you know, in the information section, hopefully by Monday, we will also have in there some training that kind of encapsulates what we're going over tonight in a way that wouldn't allow you to practice it, but would allow you to kind of refresh your memory about, how do I seek recognition? How do I vote? How do I do those things that Tim talked about? We're working on that. We've had to capture some screen videos and some screenshots and so forth, things that are just coming out of development. And so we hope to have that ready for you by the 1st of next week. Hopefully you've already been to your committees. Each of your committees has its own separate page, and there is a section in those pages where you can introduce yourself and you can get communications and ask questions of your committee leadership. So that's the third area. And then the final area in preparations we call advocacy. So the advocacy hub. And what is there is the commissioner's resolutions. So if you think you might want to make a commissioner's resolution in this area, what is available to you right now is training about the rules and the process, so that you'll understand how that works, what the deadlines are for filing them, how you file a commissioner's resolution for this assembly. Beginning on Monday, there'll be a tool that will open where you can start saying, hey, this is what I'm thinking about as a commissioner's resolution, and other commissioners from other presbyteries, other synods can see that you're posting that idea, can connect with you to work with you on it. You would then reach out to us. This is all gone over in the training that's already there. You reach out to us. We'll give you an online form for you to work on that, finalize the language, and submit it. The reason that that's not up yet is because a commissioner's resolution under the standing rules cannot deal with anything that's already before the assembly. And the deadline for this last submission of business to the assembly was just Saturday, so 5 days ago. And we needed some time this week to be sure we had it all loaded into the system. So one of the things that you would need to do if you're going to make a commissioner's resolution, and this will be my cue to jump back over to the other site, you would need to go to the business, be sure that your idea is not something that's already there, and then post your idea, find some collaborators, and work together to craft that and be sure it gets submitted through the proper process. So that's the overview of the different sections. Where we're going to go to now and where we'll spend the rest of our evening is the meeting tools. So when we are in a business section of the committee, you're going to need to have this open and on your computer. And if you, one of the things that you probably are going to want to do is to have it kind of side by side on your screen with Zoom. Now, unfortunately, one of the things that you can't do if you're sharing your screen in Zoom is to share where you've got the Zoom controls, because it very helpfully hides those. So I'm going to take this window for just a moment, and I'm going to reduce it down, not from the full screen, but down to where I now have my Zoom controls, where I can see at least some of you in this open area of my desktop. And that's what we would suggest that you do during the meeting, is that you, because most of the time when you're in the Zoom, people are not going to be sharing a screen. That's not where you're going to see the item of business that's before you is on a shared Zoom screen. You're going to see it here in My GA. If somebody's making an amendment, you're not going to see it on a shared Zoom screen. You're going to see it over here in My GA. So you're going to need to have that set up. You'll notice that when I reduce the size of my window, my control here got really kind of squeezed. So I'm going to show you the magic button that will make your life a lot easier. Right here between the kind of yellowish area and the white area, there's this one green button that's a drawer control. So if I click that, the drawer with all of the different sections collapses down and gives me a bigger area to see what I'm actually working on. So if I can't then remember which of these icons is what, I can click that again. The drawer opens, I can see the full names, and I can go to another section if I need to. So it can be a very handy tool for you to keep enough workspace so that you can really work on what you're doing. Let me give you one other suggestion about the Zoom meeting. If you are in an area where you don't have really high-speed internet, but maybe you've got a really good cell service or something like that, and you've got a good data plan on your cell phone, one option that you might have would be to run the Zoom meeting on your smartphone. So that, because again, you're just going to need to see the picture of who's speaking at the moment. That's about the only thing you'll need. The one thing that I would remind you, as we talked about, your camera has to be on. And so if you do use your computer desktop, so now I'm going to make this all the way across. If you're using your entire computer desktop or your tablet device desktop for My GA and you want to have the Zoom meeting running on a phone, then be sure you position the phone in a way that your camera is showing you so that people will be able to see you in the meeting. So in the training pieces right now, we have a piece in the GA Basics called Gearing Up, and we talk about several different options about how to arrange like an external monitor if you have it, or those kind of things. It's one of the tips we have there, so I just mentioned it tonight. Now, first thing that you may have to do, and we're going to practice this tonight. So earlier, Ted used his raise hand function because he wanted to ask me a question. I'm glad to take your questions as we go on, but there's a new rule. You can't, for the rest of the time that we're working in My GA, you can't use the Zoom raise hand function because you won't be able to do that in committees. So if you had a question, how would you do that? Well, one of the things that you can probably see if you've read here, you see that there's a little yellow square here that says question. And particularly if you're using a tablet or a touch screen, you're probably going to think, oh, if I have a question, I just need to click that box. Well, you can see I'm clicking it, and nothing's happening because these are not buttons. These are boxes that are telling you how many people have sought recognition for certain purposes. So if you want to seek recognition, what you will do is click the Seek Recognition button right here. And when you click on that, you'll see that you get a range of options. So tonight, if you have a question as we go along, what I would invite you and encourage you to do is to click the request for information, or click the seek recognition, and then you would click request for information. Now, one of the things that will happen when you do that is you'll see that it just opened here a space where it says, can you summarize what your question is? Don't write 3 or 4 sentences in this. Just tell us the basic topic. So maybe your question is, are we on the amendment still? Right? So you would type that in. So again, very few words. And then you're going to, if you need interpretation, so if your first language is in English and you would like to ask your question in Korean or in Spanish, then you would also then click this box, and then you can select which language you need. The commissioner that I'm impersonating this evening doesn't need that, so we're not going to check that box this evening. And so I've made I want to request information. I've summarized my question, and I'm going to click OK. Now, what you will see on your screens now is that, look, the question now has 1. So everybody in the meeting knows somebody has a question. What the moderator will see on their screen is that, in this case, Delton Farmer, who is a teaching elder commissioner from Charlotte Presbytery, has the question, and even will get a summary of what that question is, so that the moderator can look at this information and then decide at what point it would be appropriate to recognize that person to speak. Okay? So anytime you do one of those seek recognitions, that's what will happen. Once that information has been reviewed, then, and this becomes really important when we talk about somebody who wants to make a motion. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Maybe that motion needs to be reviewed so that we're sure it's ready to be presented. But once anything that needs to be done to kind of provide all the information to the moderators is in the system, then you'll see right here, available to call. That is your confirmation that your request to seek recognition is in front of the moderator, and the moderator can recognize you when the moderator is ready to do so. So as we continue tonight, at any point tonight, if you want to raise a question, you need me to repeat something, to go over something, go ahead, use that seek recognition tool. Now, you'll notice that this also then, when Delton made that request for information, this no longer says seek recognition, it says withdraw request. You can only seek recognition for one purpose at a time. So if you have a request to seek recognition and you want to change what it is, maybe somebody already asked your question, or maybe you decide, yeah, maybe I don't need that. Maybe it's more important to me to make a motion or something. Then you would first need to click that button to withdraw the request. And so let me get that. There we go. So Delton's has been withdrawn, but I can see now that we have a question in the queue from MJ Wojtek of the Twin Cities Area Presbytery. So MJ, go ahead with your question.
Yes, hi. I'm just mostly checking in to find out if where some differences between my GA interface and what you've been sharing on screen are. So if it's an issue of, for example, technology upgrades that I need to do in advance, or whether this might be something that hasn't been propagated to everybody yet. Also, this is my cat. Say hello. Sumner says hello. But I only have 5 buttons on the left side of my GA. I think one of those is the communications hub, the communication messaging hub, and I don't have that yet. In addition, when we were on the business hub, I don't have the historical past GA stuff tab there.
The
So
only the only one that I'm aware of has been a particular issue of not showing up because of permission settings, authorization settings. Some of this will be different based on your role. So for example, we're going to go through the seek recognition in a moment. Tonight we're in plenary mode, and so the advisory delegates are going to see a different range of options. But if you're not seeing communications or you're not seeing the history, then here's what I would ask you to do. At the very bottom of the screen, you will see that there is GA help me at pcusa.org.
Okay.
So what we would ask you to do is to send us an email to that address. Say, in my GA, I'm not getting this. Could you check my permissions on that? The one that I'm aware of that's been a problem with is the preparation. So if that's not showing up at all, I know that is a permissions issue. So you would send a note to ga.helpme@pcusa.org saying, I'm not seeing the preparations link on my GA homepage.
Okay.
We'll have to adjust your settings for that. If you've got the preparation and you click it and you just get a blank screen, or it doesn't seem to be doing anything, that's a different issue. That's a pop-up issue with your internet browser. So again, if that's what is happening for you, same thing, ga.helpme@pcusa.org. Say, when I click preparations, I don't see anything. Then also tell us what internet browser you're using. And it's an issue about pop-ups. And so we'll send you instructions specific to your internet browser about how to clear the pop-ups. Okay?
I have no issues whatsoever with preparations. That's working fine. The issue is I don't have the messaging.
Okay. So again, if it's any of those things, I'm not going to try to go into your permissions tonight.
Obviously. Obviously you only have limited amounts of time.
Right.
And as I wrap up my question here, I would say my question then, given what I've described, is that would you perhaps publish to all GA attendees what it should look like if all of their permissions and stuff are in place? Because had I known that I was missing some stuff, I would have already reached out to you.
Right. And again, that's part of this is some of these things, like we're going to talk about submitting motions in a moment. That was just released out of development in the last 3-4 days. So we've been working this week to get that. That will be part of what we will be putting into the information hub, hopefully by the end of this weekend. So that will be there. You'll have screenshots of what you should be seeing, and then it will reinforce if for some reason you're not seeing those things, how to reach out to us so we can be sure we get you squared away. Okay. All right. So having answered MJ's question, the moderator will clear that as having been done, and you'll see now our questions have reduced back down to 0. Now I can see out of the corner of my eye that there's stuff going on in the chat, which gives me a reminder that something else I should have told you. The chat function will not be working in your committees. So you cannot get the attention of the moderator. You cannot get the attention of somebody else by using chat in Zoom. And so I know I can see it scrolling. I'll look at it later, but I'm not going to look at it right now because we're practicing what life is like in a committee meeting. Okay. So again, if you've got a question or something, don't put it in the chat. Use the seek recognition button. So let's go back on to continue with that. So when you click seek recognition, you'll see that there are a range of things that are there. We are operating tonight in plenary mode because you all are from a variety of different committees, as we went through when you introduced yourselves earlier. So we have to be running the system in plenary, because if we were running as a committee, each of you would only see your committee. You wouldn't see what was going on in any other committee. So I want to point out that to the young adult advisory delegates that are with us, the only thing you're going to see is what you would see in plenary, which is speak in favor or speak against. So depending on your role, you will see different things. We have some people who are in the meeting tonight who are stated clerks or various things that may be corresponding members. So as a past moderator, Alona is a corresponding member. Corresponding members have a more limited set of options. They can't make motions. So Alana won't be seeing make motions, right? So you will be able to seek recognition for the things that your role is given permission under the standing rules. So we're going to go through the fullest range of options. That's what's available to commissioners and to advisory delegates and committee. So request information. We've already talked about that one. Speak in favor. That one's pretty self-evident. There's an item of business on the floor that's being discussed, and you want to speak in support of it. The only option if you want to speak in favor is, do you need an interpreter? So what language? Speak against, the same thing. We're going to skip past motion to amend a minute because you have to do something before you should press that button. We'll come to that. Previous question. This is the parliamentary procedure of moderator, I wish to move the previous question, which means is the way that we ask in Robert's speak to say, I think we've heard enough. Do people agree? Are you ready to vote? So this is, when this is recognized by the moderator and somebody moves the previous question, then they're saying, I think we're ready to vote. Moderator, if they recognize that, if the motion is made, then we would move to a vote. And if 2/3 of the people in that session agree, then we vote. This gives me a chance to mention one difference between a general assembly and a session meeting. If you moving the previous question doesn't normally happen in sessions, there's such small bodies, but in presbytery meetings, I know I'm in a member of National Capital Presbytery. Our presbytery meetings have about 200 people at them. People move the previous question all the time. One of the things that Roberts allows you to do is to move the previous question in all pending matters. You cannot do that at the General Assembly. The General Assembly rules do not allow for you to move the previous question in all pending matters. So the only option is to move the previous question. Whatever's on the floor right at the moment, I think we're ready to vote on that. And again, doesn't need any explanation. It's got one purpose only. You can still request an interpreter so that if you're going to say moderator in Spanish, and it'd be interpreted, you can still do that. And then the last button is process. This is procedural motions under parliamentary procedure. So for example, if the recommendation, the item of business that's before you has 4 or 5 recommendations, and you think it might be helpful to vote on each of them separately. Maybe you support 4 of the 5, but not the last one, or maybe even the 3rd one in the list. And so rather than voting on everything together, you would like them voted on separately, then you could click the process motion, and then it says, describe the action you would like to take. Well, in parliamentary speak, that's called divide the question. So you would type, I want to make a process motion, and the motion that I want to make is divide the question. You would click OK. You'll notice that that's been reviewed. And now the process motion shows that one person has a process motion. And again, the moderator would see that. All right. So what I'd like you all to do at the moment is, just for fun, go ahead and we're not going to recognize anybody out of this one, but just pick to seek recognition for something. Speak for, speak against, speak, ask a question, move the previous question, just hit a seek recognition and plug it in there. And let's drive those numbers up on the screen so that people can see what's going on. Okay, so that's how you seek recognition. You don't raise your hand, you don't wave at the screen, you don't scream out, moderator, you press the button, tell the moderator why you're wanting to speak. All right. All right, so let's talk about making motions. And this is particularly the motion to amend. So I'm going to withdraw Delton's request, and we're going to talk about how to make a motion to amend. So before we can do that, the moderator would have to put something on the floor. And so my committee recorder, Jake Souter, he figured out, oh, we're getting ready to put something on the floor. So he now has activated the motion that we're going to be working with. And that's REF 03, Training, Overture on Training. Now, you don't have to memorize all these titles, because when that comes up on your screen, if you click the little triangle next to the title, it will expand and you will get the full text of the recommendation. This is the item of business that's before us. If you start reading this particular one, you're going to notice it doesn't make any sense. It's just gibberish. It's got what's called lorem ipsum text. It's fine. It doesn't have any meaning tonight, because this is just for us to practice and see how the screen would look. So you'll see the recommendation. You'll see the rationale that is being given for it. If there is any comments from the advisory committee on the Constitution or one of the advocacy committees or any of that, it will also all display right here. So you don't, when the moderator says we are now going to consider REF 03, and so you don't have to jump out over to business to track it down. It's going to come right up on your screen. You just need to remember to click the little mark right before the title to expand it or collapse it. All right. So if there were people who were seeking recognition before that, when that happens, then they're also going to clear the speakers so that we're starting fresh. So I'm going to do that now. And we're going to see that all of these people that were in the queue to speak, we've got a new item of business before us. So we've cleared out the history. And now we're ready to proceed with this one. So again, if you think that you would like to speak in favor of this, you can go ahead and start lining up by clicking the Seek Recognition button to either speak for or against. So I can see that MJ doesn't like gibberish, and so he wants to speak against this. I can see that Barry Sherman from Homestead is speaking in favor, right? And you see the numbers going up. So you will always know whether we're in plenary, because we will use this same tool in the plenary hall, or an online committee. You will know exactly where people are. And there are a lot of people for it, there are a lot of people wanting to speak against it, okay? But let's say that you wanted to make a motion to amend it. That is a two-step process. So before you seek recognition to make a motion to amend, the first thing you would need to do is to click this tab here that says Submit Motion. And when you click that Submit Motion button, you're going to come into a workspace. So when you go into the workspace, the first thing you're going to have to do is to tell us what item of business are you wanting to amend. And so when you click the Select an Item, you're going to get a list. Now, you can see right at the moment that this list is very unhelpfully not sorted at all. And this is one of the things that I've already identified for our developers. Again, they just pushed this into production in the last couple of days. And they are working now to bid it so that when you click that Select an Item, it will sort by these reference numbers. Okay. So you'll be able to very quickly go to a particular one. But we're working on REF 03. So I'm going to find that here in this list. There's REF 02. And then there's REF 03. So I would click that. Now, and then I would put in the motion. So these instructions are really close to right. They're not exactly right. It's another thing that I've identified for the developers. But let's say then you wanted to, again, you're making a motion and you wanted to change the first sentence. So one of the things that you can do then is you can go back over into the session sync. You can go down and open that up, and you can copy that first sentence. So you would select it. Control C is the way most computers do it, or Command C if you're a Mac person rather than a Windows person. And then you can come back to the submit motion area and you can paste that text in. Then you're going to mark whether or not you want, how you want to amend it. So the way that any text that you want to amend, you're going to put inside square brackets. I'm going to zoom that up a little bit so you can see it a little easier. And then if you want to strike text, didn't help too much, you're going to click the strike through option, which will strike it out. And if you want to add text, then you would type the words in and you would click the U to underline the text. Now, the other thing is that you can submit the motion and you will have a list of your submitted motions. So in this case, Delton Farmer had already gone in and had put in advance the amendment that he wanted to make to the first sentence. So it's right there in the list. Amend the first sentence by striking these words and adding these other words to the end. Okay? So you don't have to wait until the item of business comes before your committee. If you've read the item of business ahead of time and you think, I would like to amend that recommendation in some way, you can go in and get this set up and ready to go whenever you like. And it will save as many amendments as you would like to save. Okay? And they will be there in your submitted motions, the section right here. Okay? So Delton had prepared his motion ahead of time. He knew he wanted to do this. He looked at it the night before. He was ready to go. So now he has a motion. But again, one other thing, submitting this motion stores it so that the parliamentarians and the motion coordinators can look over it, make sure it's in the proper format, but it doesn't actually bring it before the moderator. So how would you actually bring it before the moderator? Go back into the session and you're going to seek recognition. How do you get the moderator's attention? You don't wave, you don't raise your Zoom hand, you seek recognition through My GA. And this time you've got a motion to amend, so you would click it. Now notice that this time you need to select your motion. So now you'll have a list of the motions that you saved. You'll pick the one that you're wanting to move, click OK. And once you've done that, and the parliamentarian has reviewed the motion coordinators have reviewed the motion to be sure it's in the proper form. He didn't just say strike the last 5 words. Well, nobody knows the last 5 words of what. So they will work with you to help you get it into that form that we just talked about, inside brackets, strike out for what you want to delete, underline for what you want to add. When that's ready to go, you'll see the available to call. So the moderator has just recognized Delton Farmer, and Delton is reading his request. So the committee recorder then activates that motion. And now you're seeing it right here on your screen. This is now the motion that's before us. So the other thing that's going to happen is people who had requested permission to speak for or against the main motion, we're not on the main motion now. We're on the motion to amend. And so look what's going to happen. We're going to clear the speaker's box. And all those numbers are going to reset to 0 because what is before us now is the motion on the floor. So when Delton has read that, he's going to click I move it. And it will show up. Actually, somebody had already beaten Delton's. Ted had already moved the motion before Delton even had a chance to read it. And Jeff Dickinson has already seconded it. All right. So if you are wanting to second a motion, or if the moderator says, I want to move or second, they were on top of it. They already jumped in there. They clicked those boxes. When you click them, you'll see the check mark for just a moment that shows you that it's gone to the moderator. And then it clears itself. Right. So if you're asked to move or second, those go, and then that information is displayed for the moderator. So they will say who moved it, who seconded it, so forth. So now we have our discussion. So if you are in favor or against the motion, that's where you would do that. I see I have a question on the floor from Sandra Hawley. Sandra, what is your question?
Yeah, I'm wondering if, just a minute. If the if those instructions for amending motions are written so that we can have a checklist of what all needs to be done?
Yes, that will be part of the training. And it will also be right here. There's a little bit of difference here because right here it says bold and underline. It doesn't mention anything about brackets here. I pointed that out to the developers. They're updating these instructions. And so you'll actually have the instructions right there in the area where you're working. So they're cleaning that up. And it's right now it says you get a message. No, you won't get a message. It will just be in your submitted motions. So we're cleaning that up. The instructions will be right on your screen while you're working on it, and it will also be in the training. Okay. All right. So motions on the floor. So we've had our discussion. We're ready to vote. So when you are ready to vote, then the committee assistant, or sorry, not the committee assistant, the committee recorder or the recording clerk of the assembly will make the voting available. Tonight, as I said, we're working in plenary mode, so we're going to vote the way we would vote in plenary. In committee, advisory delegates and commissioners all vote together, because in committee, advisory delegates have both voice and vote. So there'll just be one step of voting. In plenary, again, we're acting in plenary mode tonight because you're all from different committees. In plenary, we will poll the advisory delegates first, and then the commissioners will vote. So the way that will work is that the moderator will say, all right, advisory delegates, we are ready for you to vote. And the vote manager will open the voting. And only advisory delegates should be seeing the vote panel right now. Advisory delegates, are you seeing the vote panel? Just go ahead and speak up. I'm not seeing the vote count go up. All right. Why is that not going? Okay.
Well, for the record, I'm not an advisory delegate, but I'm seeing the vote right now. So
that's interesting because I'm not seeing it on either of my Delton Farmer screens. Okay. One of the bugs that we had was that it was everybody was seeing, but they couldn't vote. So MJ, if you try to vote right now, not as an advisory delegate, I think it's going to tell you it won't actually allow you to submit the vote. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So we've got a few bugs that are working on the voting tonight. I'm not sure what the other one is. We'll get it. Okay. No, so now I'm seeing advisory votes, young adult advisory votes. Okay. So once the time is expired, we've got the advisory delegate votes, then the moderator will say, we're going to close the voting. Let's see if we can get this one to work. And then they will show the results of the advisory delegate vote. And so if we scroll down, hopefully, there we go. We can see that we had 3 young adult advisory delegates who voted. They all voted yes. And so as Ilana knows well, in plenary, the moderator would then say, commissioners, you have been advised. and we would remove these results. And we would say, commissioners, when your voting panel appears, please vote. And now you can see the voting panel. So while you all are voting, a couple of things I would point out to you. First, if you would like a little ping to remind you that it's time to vote, you can check this little box right here that says enable audio notification. And every time a vote is being taken, you'll get a ping through your computer. If you find the ping more annoying than helpful, just don't check the box. Second thing, this clock is just about to hit zero. It hit zero before I highlighted it. So again, think soccer, think football, depending on where you are from the world. In the world, there is a thing called stoppage time. So for example, when I wasn't sure if the advisory delegates were getting the voting panel, I left it open for longer than 30 seconds. The moderator will be getting updates from the vote manager about how many people have voted. And if they're only seeing about a quarter of the people have voted and the time has run out, they're going to go ahead and let that extend for a bit. As long as the vote's being taken, you can click your vote. You'll see the check mark. If you say, oh, wait, I clicked the wrong box, you can click the other box. You can change your vote as many times as you like while the voting is open. But when the moderator is satisfied that there is that everybody has been heard from, the moderator will say, all right, we're closing the vote, and we'll ask the vote manager to show the results. And so now you'll see at the bottom of the page what the actual vote was. So 10 voted in favor, 9 voted against. It was very close, but the amendment passed. So now a couple of things are going to happen. Actually, several things. First, they're going to clear the results. We're no longer on the motion to amend, and so we're going to clear the speaker queue again. Going to reset that because now we are on the motion that has been amended. And when we expand this, we're now going to see up. Jake, can you update us for it, please, so we can see the amended motion? Give him just a second. Okay. I'm going to drop in here real quick and give him a little helping hand here. But if the motion to amend passes, then what we have is an amended motion. And this should update. Go ahead, move this. And what's going on here? Well, we should be seeing a block here at the top that says recommendation before the committee that would show the amendment that just passed. Ah, now I see why. See if that does it. All right, so if you will, you may have to hit the refresh button on your screen. That's what I'm about to do now. I'm going to refresh this page. Go back into meetings and expand that. And now you see, now we have the recommendation before the committee. So we have below it, the original recommendation as it was referred to us, but now we've changed it, and this is the recommendation that we're now considering. So if there were more amendments that were added, those will get added into this text. And from now on, this is what we're concerned with. We're not concerned with what came before from the presbytery. We've amended it, we've changed it. And that's how we'll do that. So you will see it there, the recommendation before the committee. The same thing would happen in plenary. When you would come to plenary, you'll have the committee's recommendation. And if the assembly makes further amendments, then you'll have the recommendation before the assembly. So that you'll always be able to kind of see, how did we get to where we are, and what is the current text that we're working with. Okay. All right, a couple of questions in the queue. Sandra, did I already answer your question? I don't think I removed it after I did. Did you have a second question? Okay, so let me get David Lick from Minnesota Valleys. What is your question?
My question was, when you were talking about motions and putting them in putting the request in for recognition, does that mean if we put a motion up for request, we would actually have to withdraw it if we then wanted to be recognized for another reason?
That's correct.
That's a huge bummer. Okay, well, good to know.
Right. So moderators generally will, if they see that there are motions that people want to amend, they will tend to prioritize those other reasons. So one of the questions that came up the other night was, well, if you clear the space, I lose my place in line. You never get recognized based on where you're standing in line. There are a range of things that the moderator is always considering. Have we been speaking, if somebody's spoken for, the next person should be somebody speaking against. If there's a procedural motion, is it one that takes precedence over other things? So they'll have to recognize that. Are there questions for information? They'll typically take those. So the likelihood is if you've been asked to seek recognition to make an amendment, that will come fairly high up and you won't be in the queue a long time waiting to be recognized for that. But if you do decide that it's more important for you to do something different, then you would have to withdraw requesting to make an amendment, get that other thing dealt with, and then go back. But again, the motions to amend and so forth, they're not first come, first serve, because sometimes they're trying to clean up the language, be sure that it's clear, things of that nature. Okay. Right. I'm not seeing any other questions. That goes through all of the tools. Again, we are going to give you a way that you can kind of review this information without being, in a real-time setting like this, so you can just brush up on it. I will also tell you that you've got an email about a week ago today that had a list of all the Synod trainings and so forth when they were happening, and also 4 times at the Office of General Assembly will be doing the same training. If you'd like to sign up for one of those OGAs and have another chance to practice, go ahead. The more the merrier. So you will have those opportunities. There's a couple next week and there's a couple in June for you to practice in real time in the session again. But with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I think Pam has got the next part of the training for this evening.
So Tim, one of the questions, can you could you please share with us if you're an alternate or just an observer, what they can expect as far as on the MyGA thing? They don't have any of the meeting tools, correct?
That you would have the meeting tools, but so you could go there and see what the motion is, and you could see if there's amendments that are pending. What you would not have as the alternate is what we call that parliamentary toolbox. So you wouldn't see the seek recognition, because as an alternate, you can't seek recognition.
Right.
You wouldn't see the voting panels. You would see the voting results. You would see the recommendation that's currently before the body. You would see any motions to amend, but you wouldn't have the ability to seek recognition or to vote.
Right. And that would be the same for all, like all observers.
For all observers, that's correct. So if you're a corresponding member, well, if you're a corresponding member, you would be able to seek recognition, but only to speak in favor or against under the rules for a corresponding member.
Right.
Ted asked through the MyGA, so I'm going to get him, and then we'll go to Suzanne. But Ted first from Milwaukee. Got to say it right.
Milwaukee. And we go to Chicago.
Yeah.
So I have a little bit of a concern, and I'm sure you guys have thought about this already, but my concern is any sort of light or not so light discrimination based on how tech savvy. Will we be less democratic because people who are more tech savvy can function better? And that may be due to age, it may be due to language, whatever. And I'm nervous about that for others. I'm keeping up, but I'm not 25, so.
Right. So, basically it's the seek recognition tool. Once you've worked with it a little bit, you'll get the hang of it. It's much less complicated than commenting on a Facebook post, frankly. It takes a little getting used to, but we found that people can adopt to it pretty quickly. We are providing training. We're working on getting the training translated for those. What the moderator sees, and it actually provides a lot of information to be sure that we're hearing from a diversity of voices. Moderator will know so that they can, a range of presbyteries, a range of synods, a range of different types of commissioners and advisory delegates. So there's a lot of things that are built into the system that are not as obvious to you when you're looking at numbers on a box as they are to the moderator, to be sure that we are in fact hearing from the range of voices. Suzanne?
My question is, I'm an alternate and I don't have any login information at all. Am I supposed to have been getting this? Or is it waiting until I know that I'm going to actually be a commissioner?
So anyone can register for the assembly and there's no fee associated with that. So if you want to go ahead and just register for the assembly, you can do that. Alternates don't get the invitation to register for the committee, for the assembly as a commissioner until they are actually activated. Okay. Let me see. Pam, should I take a couple more of these that are queued up in the My GA? Okay. I don't want to steal all your time. Elizabeth Hall from Twin Cities.
Yeah, I just have a question about using kind of quote unquote like two monitors. Like I have all of I don't know if you guys can see it, but like all of like the voting stuff on one screen, and then you guys are on my computer on the other screen. Would I be able to do that while in committee, or is that like looked frowned upon?
Nope, that's fine. When I'm working actually on 3 different screens right now. So I have you all in front of me. When I was being Delton Farmer, I had Delton Farmer's screen in front of me. I have the stuff that I need to do, like to do voting and all of that on another screen. I've got my iPad running over here on the side just so I can be sure that things are working right. Use as many screens as you like. All right. And one more here, Elizabeth Hall, Twin Cities.
Nope, only one. Sorry. I only had one.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I'd removed, okay. So I'm not seeing any others unless I cleared the wrong person. I'm not seeing anybody else in my GA with questions. So again, I'll try to hand it off to Pam.
Thank you, Tim. We appreciate you. So Deb, are we going to talk about the Synod overtures first?
That's up to you, Pam.
Okay, why don't we talk about them? So we have 2 overtures which our Synod has approved and sent on to General Assembly. Deb, do you want to talk about the Board of Pensions one?
Okay. I'm trying to pin myself here. Just I lost my mouse. We sent you copies of both of the overtures in the email that you received on Monday, and we just wanted to let you know, give you a chance to know about these 2 overtures that are coming from the Synod, as well as I suppose we could answer any questions that you might have at this point. The overture regarding the Board of Pensions, they have brought forth a new plan effective in January 1st, 2025. And there are a lot of wonderful parts about this new Board of Pensions plan. A lot of good benefits, the expansion of access to benefits. There is a lot that is very good. And all those good words had to get cut out of our overture because of the word limit on the overture itself. So I just wanted to say that to you, that we recognized at the Synod meeting that there's a lot of good in this overture or in their new plan. The concern, and we've heard a lot about it, is the impact of medical dues, particularly family medical dues, as well as medical dues for spouses are the two largest concerns. Medical dues for the member plus children are going to be a little bit more expensive than what churches have been paying up to this point. But one of the things that has happened is that the dues have been reduced, medical dues have been reduced to cover the member only, and that's what's required effective January 1st, that there's no required coverage for the family as there has been for the last 37 years or so. And we knew that there was a change coming, but the fact that it is one price, no matter what the income or whether the person is full-time or part-time, is the place that this is really pinching a lot of congregations in the bounds of the Synod. And in the overture, in the narrative part, you'll see 3 examples of 3 different salary levels of solo pastors and the impact of the changes on those particular positions. And I think that really that concern for the least, the concern for these small churches that are such an important part of who we are as a synod, but an important part of the Presbyterian witness in the country are small churches, county churches, county seat churches is the way some of the folks in John Knox were referring to them when we were in Denver at the Board of Pensions gathering. And at the leadership summit, that that there's just a deep concern. At our Synod meeting, one of our officers talked about needing that her church will probably close with this new plan because family benefits are required for their family, and it just isn't feasible to continue by adding $20,600 on top of the 16% for the pastor. And so we are overturing the General Assembly. We have overtured the General Assembly to ask them to work with the Board of Pensions to change this for the year 2026 so that it's more equitable beginning in 2026. The Synod and a number of the presbyteries within the Synod are willing to work with congregations for next year, for 2025, to help them move from the 39% to the 43% of salary in order to continue to cover families. But you'll see a lot of statistics in the overture. Like 48% of congregations, the person on the Board of Pensions includes either spouse or children or family, which is spouse and children, but they don't all add up, which is just is. So this will be the change in medical benefits will be good for congregations that have single pastors or pastors that don't need any family or spousal coverage, but it's that other 48% that is that this is potentially a struggle. So this overture that you have before you, and I noticed I was looking around while Tim was talking that it has not yet been assigned to a committee. it doesn't quite fit into the committee structure. But this was passed unanimously at the Synod Assembly. So it comes from the 16 presbyteries within the Synod. And I have people, we are gathering letters for whatever committee they end up being, it ends up being assigned to say this. We've gone to the Board of Pensions directly. They basically said, well, just what it is. And the Board of Pensions is one of the agencies of the General Assembly. And so the General Assembly is the only entity that can really address this matter with them. That's all I have to say about that.
Thanks, Deb. Ilona, do you want to talk about the Synod boundary ones, or do you want me to?
Unmute first. I think we could both contribute to it. I would
Okay.
just say, this was a church-wide effort to make sure that the descriptions of where churches are located is not only, well, is accurate, but also consistent through all the essential documents that a presbytery may have, and therefore that a synod would have, if they were to request information from a presbytery. So it did require that clerks and others in the presbyteries were going over with a fine-tooth comb the name of a church, the actual location. People realized that maybe some things had been misspelled. Everybody had been reading it for years and never caught the misspelling, or that it was literally on the other side of a county line or something. So this is an incredible exercise in bringing things up to date, making sure that they're correct, and so that they could be used in the, purposes of the church for our ministry. One example being, we did, I think, enhance and improve the description of Dakota Presbytery, which is a non-geographical presbytery. So when you're looking at geographical boundaries, how do you identify that for Dakota Presbytery? And we originally said, well, it's a non-geographical presbytery in the Synod of Lakes and Prairies. And then, as we talked about that, you would not know where any of those churches were. I might, but if you've been there, you would. But just reading that wouldn't help you. And this is supposed to be, the map of helping us identify where churches are. So we added the language of with churches in the states of Minnesota, North and South Dakota, and Montana. So again, it's for practical purposes to be able to correctly identify where churches are located.
And do you want to say anything about the piece we added?
Right, now I don't know where that will show up.
It shows up right on the overture as letter A. We have an A and a B on our boundary overture, which is in the mid-council committee, so it's MC 19.
Okay. In the past decade, as you know, our General Assembly has taken several actions related to Native American ministries in the denomination. And it's also been an opportunity for us to improve language as well as historical accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
And as you look not only at the descriptions of presbyteries and where churches are located in our synod, but all across the church, there is an overwhelming majority of the place names that are used to identify the counties or the locations of these churches that are from indigenous words. However, there was no recognition that, the presence of Native people is demonstrated by the actual reference to those place names that are based on indigenous words. So we did some thinking, and in a roundabout way to be able to say, this isn't particularly a way to say something was wrong, but it's just being able to provide that acknowledgement that the Presbyterian Church is located and has a commitment to understanding its relationship to indigenous nations for the past to correct things, currently, and for the future. And so that's what that additional language is about. But again, it's sometimes what is read between the lines. So you see an abundance of indigenous words, but there was no statement that there were actually Indian people here. So that's what we're recognizing now in this. And we've talked to leadership at the General Assembly and a concurrence again in their understanding of that would really improve how we describe the Presbyterian Church and the locations of our ministries.
Thank you, Ilona. So I was asked just to talk about, for some of you going to GA this year, it'll be the absolute first time you've ever experienced General Assembly, which is quite an experience, as those of you who've been there before. So I was just asked to talk a little bit about the experience. And Tim, if you have more to add, please do, because the format is different. It'll be very different for us who are longtime GA folks. So I think the first thing that's important for commissioners and delegates to think about when they're in the committee or in a plenary session is that it's really important to be open to the Spirit. A lot of times we go into things like this and think we have our minds made up about how we're going to vote on something, and the Holy Spirit can laugh at that and can really make a difference in how a person votes. I have heard many commissioners say to me, when I get into the plenary and you get all these people talking about a particular issue, it really can, the Spirit can really make a difference in your perspective. It's also, I mean, the information that you're getting is overwhelming, especially when you consider the technology piece as well. So I encourage you to take time ahead of the assembly to familiarize yourself with all the technology tools, and don't ask me because I don't know the answers, but that the email address that Tim shared with us, they're really helpful and responsive. And it's also, besides all the technology stuff, it is important that you read. My daughter, I'm going to call you out, Julia, said, that's all I've been doing this past year as a graduate student is reading. I don't need to read anymore. And I'm like, yeah, you do. It's really important that you especially read through the information and all the pieces of information and business for your committee. And if you don't understand something, to ask questions. And that's where your stated clerks and other mid-council staff can be really helpful, because they can probably help answer those types of questions. And then once you are familiar with all your committee stuff, that you then broaden and start reading other overtures and information that is coming through other committees that will probably come to the plenary floor. And one of the things that I highly recommend you read is to go to that resources tab and read the standing rules. It was a different title. I don't have it in front of me anymore. But the standing rules, it is good to familiarize yourself with the standing rules of the General Assembly. That's one of the pieces of business coming to one of the committees, is the revamping of all of those. But if you are familiar with the standing rules, that will help you understand how General Assembly is run. Tim, can you talk a little bit about the consent agenda?
Sure.
Off the top of your head, because I can't talk about it off the top of my head.
Okay. So first, where you will find the standing rules, Pam mentioned it has a little different title. It doesn't show up, but if you go to that resources section that we talked about in My GA, what you're looking for is the document that will say Manual of the General Assembly.
Yeah.
The Manual of the General Assembly that has several sections to it. The first section is the standing rules. I'll make that quick plug. So one of the things that we do to try to expedite the handling of matters once we move out of committees and into plenary is we put together what's called a consent agenda. So your committee leadership Once your committee has finished its work, they will meet with me and a few others. Again, my role during the assembly is I'm the recording clerk. So I'm the one who has to be sure that when we get to the end of the assembly, every item of business has been acted upon. And one of the things that we will do is we'll say, all right, if there were items of business that were approved overwhelmingly within the committee, then they should be placed on a consent agenda, which means that we would vote on all of them at once with no debate. So I believe the cutoff is if they are approved by 75% or more under the standing rules, then it goes on to the consent agenda. There are a few things that cannot, if it's an amendment to the book of order, it can't go onto the consent agenda. If it has certain financial implications, it can't go, but we'll sort that part out for you. That consent agenda will be published, and before the first in-person plenary meeting, one of the first items of business is that the bills and overtures will draw everybody's attention to where that is in my GA. You can look through it. And if there's anything there that you say, no, I think we need to debate that, any one commissioner can say, I would like to have this item lifted from the consent agenda. So, I'm going to use the reference number we used tonight. It's obviously, it's not a real piece of business, but you would say, I see that REF 03 is on the consent agenda. I think we should discuss that. I'd ask that it be lifted. If that happens, we lift it. So any one commissioner can lift items from the consent agenda. Once we have removed any items that commissioners want to discuss, then there will be one vote taken that will include everything that's still on the consent agenda. And normally we clear a half or more of all the business that's going to come to plenary through that consent agenda action. So that's the way it works. It's this things that we have seen are not controversial because of the way that they were dealt with in committee. Frankly, there aren't too many things that pass by 75%. I mean, usually it's either 90 or it's really close. I mean, it's, there's if stuff ends up on the consent agenda, it's usually much higher than 75%, but that's what's defined in the standing rules.
Thank you, Tim. So as far as some things to think about for packing, obviously you want to bring your device and a charge cord. And there's also these, if you want to, there are ways that you can lock your computer to the table where you're sitting in General Assembly. That's something that you can look into as well. You all know that convention halls get really cold. So I'd encourage you to think about that as far as maybe you'll want to bring an extra jacket, or I've seen people have blankets with them so that they can stay warm. I always like to pack an umbrella. I don't know, Utah doesn't necessarily get a lot of rain in my experience, but that's a good idea to pack that as well. And then as Ian said, our job as mid-council staff is to provide treats and whatnot. You need to know that in the plenary hall, the commissioners and advisory delegates, there's like a fence, for lack of a better word, and you have to have the right credentials to pass over that fence, which unless a mid-council staff is serving in a committee leadership role, they can't pass over the fence. So you might have to go pick up the treats from the mid-council leader. Ilona and I also are bringing treat bags from the Synod. And one of the things in that treat bag will be a ribbon that you can wear if you so choose to show that you're from the Synod of Lakes and Prairies, as well as some other treats. And Ilona and I will figure out how we're going to distribute them. We haven't figured that out yet.
We'll let you know.
But we'll let you know for sure. And I think, oh, and the other thing that we did that was sent to you from Gretchen, our office administrator, was a report that the Synod of Lakes and Prairies submits every synod is given the opportunity to submit a report on what we've been doing since the last General Assembly. So that was why that report was given to you. So if somebody asks you about the Synod of Lakes and Prairies, you can talk like you know what you're talking about. That report will come to the Mid-Council Committee too. But I think what's most important about General Assembly is that you make some good friends, have the worship services are amazing. Ilona is on the worship committee for General Assembly. I don't know, do you want to talk about the worship services at all, Ilona?
It's just that it's still being prepared.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, I just have my folder and everything right here. But we're the song by Jane Parker Huber.
Oh yeah, Live Into Hope is the theme hymn.
Thank you. Which is the basis for the theme and the worship. Thank you very much. And every day we will take a look at a different verse or line from that song as part of the worship. And worship will include a variety of opportunities to hear from, you know, leaders in the church that you might recognize, new people that would be introduced to you, ecumenical partners, and just always fabulous music. It is the time when we sing together, you get chills. And that's, I think, you know, the Holy Spirit saying, I'm joining you right now. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Pam, I would also suggest that people make sure that they have comfortable shoes.
Yes.
Don't go to GA and break in your shoes. Make sure they're shoes that you're well familiar with, your feet know, and that if you need to bring extra band-aids to make sure you don't get any calluses or anything. But plan on, you know, yeah, having your feet very comfortable at GA.
I think I have said everything I wanted to say or thought to say. I actually was told to say by my husband. I interviewed him about being a commissioner. But this Zoom has been recorded and Deb will then post it up on YouTube. Is that right? And you can watch it again to get all the info from Tim, which was really helpful, but it was the first time through for you. You probably want to look at it again. And I hope that all your presbyteries have some sort of training as well. And of course, if you have questions, please reach out. Ilona and myself and Deb and Tim, we are more than willing to answer questions.
Are there any questions?
Yeah.
I see that Ian has put a comment in the chat that says that you can get extra monitors if you want to bring an extra monitor to attach to your laptop, that you can find some external monitors through places like Amazon. And he does give a link in the chat if that's something that you might be interested in.
But you can also hook up an iPad as an extra, or an iPad or a other type of a device. Yeah, thank you.
I would just say that there's not a lot of reason as a commissioner to worry about lugging an extra monitor, even if it's just one of the tablet type monitors to Salt Lake City. Again, once you're in Salt Lake City, unless you are using the Zoom for interpretation purposes, you'll just have just the MyGA that you need to worry about. So I mentioned what I have, but that's because when the assembly is in session in plenary, I've got to be activating the motions as well as being sure they are activated. I've got to work with people who are doing the voting. There's just a lot more behind the scenes that I have to be aware of. But as a commissioner, you will be more helped by having an extra monitor or an extra screen, whether again, if it's just running the Zoom on your phone during the online committees. I wouldn't worry as much about logging something to Salt Lake City, because working just on the one screen between that and the projection screens in the hall and all that, you would be fine.
Thank you, Tim. So anything else before we close in prayer? Okay.
Ilona?
I thank everyone for joining us tonight. We know that you will still probably have some questions, so really don't hesitate to be able to either send them to us in an email or make a phone call, and we'll be there to help you as much as possible. So join me now in prayer. Faithful and wondrous God, you are the source of life, creating all things through wisdom and sustained by grace. Thank you for everyone who is able to be here tonight. May we lean forward into hope as the theme of the General Assembly continues to unfold. You, God, are very mindful of ways we comprehend the needs of your churches, our communities, and the world. You've given us work to do and call us to be prepared in thought, word, and deed to fulfill your mission during this meeting of the 226th General Assembly. Please keep your spirit with us as we commit ourselves to read, study, and pray in order to be witnesses to the wisdom and the promise of your kingdom. Help us to use our authority and to be faithful in the way we serve you. Give each of us greater understanding of our relationships, this business that's come before us, the resources that we will have, and our purpose, so we can better listen and learn before, during, and after our assembly in Salt Lake City. Shine your light on these tasks, our documents and our calendars, so we can better see what you want us to know and do. Use us as you will, always to your glory and the welfare of your people. Take away our anxieties and the confusions so we can make wise decisions using the gifts you've given us, our energy, intelligence, imagination, and love. Remind us to keep each other in prayer, those who are able to attend, those that we support, those that are present making General Assembly possible, our commissioners, our mission partners, our advisory delegates, staff for operations, our preachers, presenters, our moderators, and our clerk. And those who are not able to participate because of health needs or other circumstances that will not make it possible for them to join us. Bless us now and tomorrow as we pray together for safe travel for those coming from all over the world to gather in your name for the 226th General Assembly. Amen.
Thank you, everyone.
Here.
Mhm.